All right, it's time for an IQ test. You work your whole life to collect these pieces of paper. And if I asked you, what is this? What would you say? Well, if you're like most people, you're going to answer, hey, Jeff, that's $100 bill. That's money. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this is not money. You have been lied to. Hey, I'm Jeff Swanson, and I'm not a financial advisor. However, I do know a scam when I see one. So lean in. Let me whisper something to you that Wall Street will never tell you, that these pieces of paper, this $100 bill, is not money. It's better described as a vampire quietly sucking away your future. Now, one of the biggest lies we have been told is that this $100 bill is money. It is not. In technical terms, it's called a fiat currency, and that's a very different definition of money. Now, you might be saying, hey, Jeff, come on. I mean, you're just playing with words, right? No, this is the core of the deception that the entire system is built upon. It really matters a lot, so please start taking some notes. Now, once you grasp this concept that we're about to cover, you're going to start to see the world with new eyes and making better decisions. Think about it. This $100 bill represents your time and your labor. You go to a job, trade an hour of your life, your creativity, your problem solving skills and energy, and of course, time away from friends and family. And in return, your employer hands you this $100 bill. So, in a very real sense, this piece of paper represents your life, or more accurately, your energy. But here's the problem: this $100 bill loses value every single year. In fact, the longer you hold it, the less it's worth. If you put it into savings and pull it out in a year from now, it's going to buy less groceries. And it's going to buy fewer and fewer groceries as the year goes by. Now, we call this inflation. And how does inflation happen? Well, pay attention. This is where I show you how crooked the system is. The government and its central banks, and even your local bank, can create more of these bills at any time. They can literally create millions with just a few keystrokes on their keyboard. Now let that sink in. You have to work hours to earn this $100 bill, but they can create millions of them in seconds. Now, can you do that? Can you instantly create a $100 bill in your basement to buy your groceries or pay your rent? Well, of course not. That's called counterfeiting, and it's illegal. You would go to jail. But what about those governments and banks? They counterfeit dollars all the time, but they call it quantitative easing, and they are praised for their bold action while they counterfeit money. Here's a real simple example. When you take out a mortgage, the bank doesn't hand you a bunch of money that they had sitting in a vault, right? They conjure the vast bulk of it out of thin air. And what do they do with that? Well, they give that to you and they charge you interest on that made up fantasy money. They created that money for free out of nothing and are making you pay your hard earned dollars for it. That's the modern banking system. That's the financial wizardry that has you as the mark. They loan you the money and charge you interest. Ever wonder why those banks have such large, shiny new buildings in any downtown area? Well, it's because you pay interest on the money they conjure from nothing. This is the financial hocus pocus that we're all subject to. That's why everything around you goes up in price. Now, how bad is this inflation? Well, I consider it a death spiral. Since 1971, the US dollar has lost over 90% of its value. Again, economists politely call this inflation. I call it legalized theft. Now, this, my friend, is the scam. That's fiat currency. The word fiat, again, means by decree. This currency has value only because the government says it does, but yet they can print it, but you have to work for it. Get it? You see how corrupt this is? So, why is that $100 bill not money? Let's circle back. Well, it's not money because it leaks value. Money is supposed to store your value, like a high capacity battery. Fiat currency is a battery designed to leak your life's energy, silently transferring it to those who print the money. They're transferring wealth upwards. It's a game rigged against you. Now, again, money should hold value, not leak value like a sieve. Now, was there a time when money didn't leak value? Yeah, it was. It wasn't perfect by any means, but decades ago, the US dollar was backed by gold. Gold acted as a constraint, like a speed bump, slowing down how much money the government could print. A $100 bill used to be a claim on gold. Instead of carrying around gold coins or gold bricks or silver bricks, you carried around a piece of paper like this that was an IOU backed by metal in a vault. And that gold, it had to be mined, refined, transported, stored. It took real effort, real labor to dig it out of the ground, just like the hours you spend at your job. You see how that works? The government couldn't print more gold. They had to work for it. And that forced a constraint. Your dollars didn't leak value like they do today. Back then, entire eras of the US history had zero inflation or sometimes even deflation, and the economy still boomed. But today, that tether is gone. In 1971, Nixon removed the last remnants of the gold standard.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets.
And since then, the dollar can be printed at an unlimited supply. And every time they do that, your purchasing power gets crushed. This is the tragedy of unsound money. Quote, no man should work for money that another man can print. Jack Mallers. This is the root of the problem with our modern financial system. It's why your savings don't go as far as they used to. It's why rent keeps climbing. It's why that cart of groceries costs more and more every year. You trade your hard hours of work for paper dollars that they create with a few keystrokes on a computer. This is not a free market. It's time and value theft. Now, how devastating is this to your wealth? Well, I would say very devastating. If you're saving for an emergency fund or a down payment on a home or just simply for retirement, pay attention. You're going to hear people say, oh, 2% inflation and shrug. Nah, it's harmless, right? It's not a big deal. However, we've all been brainwashed into believing that inflation is necessary for growth and that 2% is normal. It is not normal. With just 2% inflation, the money that you're saving for retirement or for that down payment on a house loses half of its value every 35 years. So decades of your life are evaporated. But it gets worse. Do you think inflation is really 2%? Of course not. That's an engineered number, right? You know that. You and I live in the real world. A more realistic figure is around 7%. And at that rate, your money is cut in half every 10 years. Every decade, your savings lose half their value. That means about 5 years of your life were stolen. You see that? That is the crime. Sure, you can offset some of this damage by investing, like in the stock market. And that's why people say, hey, put your money in a stock index fund. Why? Because that's going to earn about 8% per year, right? 8% per year means partially neutralizing that inflation. So for decades, that's the best we could do. Try to outrun the monetary treadmill by investing in Wall Street. But, there's risk to putting your money into Wall Street, particularly if you're doing companies, because companies can fail. Companies can underperform. Companies can commit crimes and be delisted. So that's why people say put it in an index fund. Wouldn't it be great if we had a better way to save our fiat money? Well, guess what? There is. There is a new hope, and that, of course, is Bitcoin. Bitcoin cannot be printed. It cannot be diluted. It cannot be hacked. faked or inflated away. It exists outside of Wall Street and represents a new invention that you and I can leverage to our advantage. Imagine saving $1,000 in Bitcoin today, and in 100 years, it's worth more. That's what money is supposed to do. In today's fiat world, that same $1,000 might be worth $100, but with Bitcoin, it will be worth more. Bitcoin doesn't just protect your money, it protects your time. It protects your future. That is why Bitcoin is the hardest money the world has ever seen. Now, I like to think of it as a fortress of math and cryptography protecting your life's energy. And to be clear, the word Bitcoin is a bit misleading. There are no physical coins, right? Bitcoin is best described as a secure digital vault where you can store $10, $1,000, or even $100,000 or millions with no risk of inflation eating it away. Think of it as a monetary black hole. Once value crosses that event horizon, it cannot escape. Bitcoin is money, re-engineered for the digital age. This isn't speculation. This is your salvation. You don't have to play the rigged game anymore. With Bitcoin, you're preserving your purchasing power for decades to come. How? By opting out of their broken fiat system. Now, for years, people have been trying to fix the money or fix politics, but the foundation is all rotted. You can't fix the fiat money system. It must be rebuilt from the ground up. And that's what the Bitcoin global network is, a parallel system that you and I are creating today. So consider this a wake-up call. Start looking into Bitcoin. Learn what money is and what's wrong with the current fiat dollar. And when you do, when you really understand it, you're going to see how Bitcoin fixes our broken system. You're going to see it for what it truly is, a savings vehicle for your hard-earned money. Saving in Bitcoin becomes a no-brainer at that point. All right, that's all for today. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video and share it with friends who are trapped in fiat hell. More videos are inbound. Until next time.